We're going to start this morning, though, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis making it official, filing paperwork to run for president. He announced the move alongside Elon Musk in a Twitter broadcast, which suffered technical problems. NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest.
After months of teasing a presidential run, Governor DeSantis' highly unconventional launch got off to a rocky start. After teasing a run for months with stops in Iowa, New Hampshire, and a high-profile overseas trip,
you can see that brighter future.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is diving into the presidential race in a highly unconventional way. In addition to a new ad, an audio-only announcement on Twitter Spaces with billionaire Elon Musk that appeared to have technical glitches.
All right, sorry about that. We've got so many people here that I think we are kind of melting the servers.
DeSantis now seen as Republican frontrunner, former President Trump's toughest opponent. Just 5 years ago, Trump's endorsement critical to DeSantis' victory in his first run for governor. He even touted it in this campaign ad with his kids.
Make America great again.
But the relationship later souring after DeSantis' landslide re-election win. He now argues he's the best pick to take on President Biden.
We must reject the culture of losing that has infected our party in recent years.
And stood for what was right.
New details about how a pro-DeSantis super PAC plans to do it. A staggering $200 million operating budget that includes hiring more than 2,600 field organizers by Labor Day. But DeSantis still trails Trump by more than 25 points in many polls. Now, in the state both men call home, a scramble for GOP primary voters. We met Trump supporter Monique Pope, an attorney and mother of two.
I believe President Trump is the man that can bring us across the finish line.
While DeSantis backer Robert Salvador told us he moved his construction software business from Illinois to Florida because the governor removed COVID restrictions early.
You know, we saw his leadership during COVID when everyone was yelling at him, across the country and around the world to shut down.
The Trump campaign is seizing on the technical glitches of this announcement. One advisor telling me that Governor DeSantis is just not ready to be president and that, quote, this is embarrassing. Meanwhile, a DeSantis campaign official says that the strength of his candidacy broke the internet. Back to you.
And now for more on the launch, we turn to NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray, who joins us now with more. Good morning, Mark. So this was a long-anticipated announcement. How have some of the other candidates, including former President Trump, been reacting to the announcement?
Yeah, as Gabe ended up mentioning, former President Donald Trump took delight in the glitchy launch that we ended up seeing last night from Ron DeSantis on Twitter. He ended up posting mocking videos. He ended up calling it a disaster and also ended up dropping up other types of opposition research at the Florida governor. From some of the other campaigns, they ended up actually using it trying to raise money. For example, President Joe Biden's re-election campaign ended up telling people over Twitter to click this link. It actually works to donate money. And so a lot of DeSantis's opponents, both Democrats and Republicans, were having fun at his expense last night.
And Mark, both sides are obviously trying to spin those technical issues. Opponents saying it shows that the governor is not ready. Supporters are arguing that he, quote, broke the internet as interest was so high. But outside of the media bubble, how do you think the average voters will view this?
Presidential launches are about introducing yourself to voters at large. And so whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you want to talk about who you are married to, your children, your vision, your background, your upbringing. And what last night ended up doing was kind of robbing Ron DeSantis of that kind of opportunity, where so much of the focus was on the glitch. And even before the glitches actually took place, so much of the other focus was on Elon Musk and Twitter's role in that campaign launch. And so campaigns can recover, as Elon Musk ended up saying last night. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. But last night's start was definitely rocky for the Florida governor.
Mm-hmm. And finally, now that Governor DeSantis has officially announced he's able to speak as a candidate, what seems to be the main focus of his campaign moving forward?
Yeah, one word, it kind of comes, it's fight. And so whether it was in the campaign video that came out introducing his bid, his rhetoric, not only in the interview that he ended up having with Elon Musk and Twitter last night, but also later on Fox News, Ron DeSantis talked about how he fights against Disney, fights against the woke mob, as he likes to call it, the legislation that he ended up passing as Florida governor to really kind of strike back at a lot of his liberal critics. And so I do think that word fight is going to encapsulate a lot of DeSantis's message as he goes forward in what is going to be a very long and hard-fought Republican presidential campaign.
Okay, Mark Murray, thanks so much. This morning, there is a new warning about the state of the U.S. economy as Washington grapples with the debt ceiling standoff. Fitch Ratings, which is a top credit rating agency, has put the U.S. credit rating on watch for a possible downgrade if the country were to default and not be able to pay its bills. This warning comes as the White House and Republicans in Congress are working to reach a deal to raise the debt ceiling and avoid a default before the June 1st deadline. We're joined now by NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Ryan, good morning. So the U.S. credit rating was downgraded in a previous debt ceiling standoff. How serious is this new warning and how significant is this development? What sort of impact could this have on those debt talk negotiations?
Well, Valerie, this is important because even if negotiators do end up coming to a deal in the short term, there's a chance that the credit ratings interpretation of the American ability to fund its government and also to pay its debts could impact the overall rating that the investors take when it comes to the federal government. And that could mean that it will cost more money for the federal government to borrow going forward. So a big part of these negotiations is Republicans trying to get the White House to spend less money. If your credit rating gets downgraded, that means you're going to end up spending more money to take out money. So it's just another big red blaring warning that these negotiators need to come to a deal, and they need to do so soon, or there will be serious consequences.
And Ryan, we know there are still several major sticking points that both the White House and House Republicans are trying to hammer out. There's not much time left. House members are slated to go home for the holiday weekend after taking part in votes today. How confident is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy that a deal can be reached in that time?
It's interesting. There's a lot of mixed messaging from the House Speaker. Sometimes he talks about how he feels as though the White House is not budging at all. Other times he talks about how they're making progress. He told me the other day that they're going to get a deal, not to worry about it. Listen to how he was talking about it yesterday.
There's differences. We know where it's at. You have to spend less than you spent last year. That's not that difficult to do. But in Washington, somehow, that is a problem. Let me tell the American public, I am not going to give up. We're not going to default. We're going to solve this problem. I will stay with it until we can get it done.
So McCarthy believes that there's a deal to be had, but he's also not going to give in on some of these key points. Negotiators were working well into the night last night. You know, they're trying to talk about things like a larger non-defense cuts, the period of time in which the debt ceiling would be raised. They're also hammering over things like health care and health savings, things along those lines. They seem to be getting closer, Valerie, but we just don't know what it's going to take to finally get them over the hump.
And finally, Ryan, there's also new reporting about growing angst from Dems regarding the president's negotiations with Republicans. Democrats in the House aren't just standing on the sidelines in all of this. Democratic leaders say all 213 members of its caucus are ready to force a vote on the debt ceiling. What would need to happen for that to go through?
Well, they'd have to find 5 Republicans willing to join in, and then they'd have to find 10 Republicans in the Senate that would also agree to something, this legislative tactic called a discharge petition. That seems very unrealistic. And there are Democrats that are concerned about the way that the White House has just allowed Kevin McCarthy to drive the narrative here. You know, it's not normally like this, where a House Speaker talks to us almost every single time he leaves his office. Kevin McCarthy's making himself available to reporters to spin the Republican message at every single turn. We've rarely heard from the president at all, even his top allies, his cabinet secretaries, the vice president. Yesterday, you did see House Democrats start to be a little bit more aggressive in their messaging pushback. But the simple fact is, it's those negotiators in the closed door room that are going to have to come up with the solution to this problem and land this plane, Valerie.
All right, we know those days are running out. Ryan, thank you so much. Now to South Carolina, where convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh is now facing new charges after being indicted by a federal grand jury. Murdaugh is facing 22 financial fraud charges, including money laundering. He's accused of cheating the estate of his late housekeeper and insurance carriers out of $3.5 million following his housekeeper's death in 2018. Murdaugh's lawyers say he is cooperating with authorities and that they believe the case will be resolved without going to trial. Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison back in March for the murder of his wife and youngest son. Joining us now to discuss is NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny, good morning. So we first learned about the death of Murdaugh's housekeeper during this trial. His alleged conspirator in the fraud case, Corey Fleming, is expected to plead guilty in court today. What does that do for Murdaugh's case?
It makes it worse, but worse is a relative term. Murdaugh's federal case is about as bad for the defendant as it can get, and that's why it's going to be a guilty plea. This case will not go to trial for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is that Murdaugh took the stand himself under oath in his first state court criminal case and essentially admitted to most of the conduct that forms the basis for this federal indictment. And even if he hadn't done that, we already know the state introduced other evidence of all of his financial crimes. And then you add to that the fact that his co-conspirator has pleaded guilty, and you can expect that if this case were to go to trial, that might be a cooperating witness against him. This case was made months ago, maybe years ago, before the government even brought it to a grand jury for the indictment.
Let's talk about the specifics in the indictment. They accuse Murdaugh of routing and redirecting other clients' settlement funds to himself. And according to the indictment, the scheme lasted more than 15 years. So what is his defense going to look like here?
There is none. I handle cases like Murdaugh does. These are catastrophic personal injury cases. And here's the thing. Yes, most of what we attorneys do, especially with our client trust accounts, is on our honor. It's the honor system. So someone like Murdaugh can get away with some of these breathtaking, unimpressive scams for a while. But as soon as you arouse suspicion and there's an audit of these accounts, the case is over. It's all on paper. It is really easy to find out whether or not the client got the money or not. What makes this particularly galling to an attorney like me, and probably attorneys everywhere, is that Murdaugh had a lot of unsophisticated clients. That came out in his state court case. That was part of the state's theory there. So what makes it so sad to me is that we as attorneys gain the trust of our clients. In fact, that's why it's the client trust account. We're holding it in trust, and they count on us to do that. So yes, you can steal from them if you deceive them. And it makes it so sad to me. Look, attorneys, our client trust accounts, we can get disbarred if we just don't keep good records on them. That's how serious this is. And to see an attorney doing this allegedly, although it's so likely he's going to plead guilty, it's just shocking. It's the kind of thing that is very easily proven. Even without a cooperating witness, you just need to get the bank statements, the checks, all the paperwork, and most of the case kind of proves itself.
And aside from the fraud case, there's another case that he is set to be deposed in, a wrongful death lawsuit from a 2019 boat crash. Walk us through that one.
So essentially, the plaintiffs here are alleging that this is a kind of negligent entrustment, that Murdaugh, in letting someone, his son, operate the motor vehicle, in this case a boat, he did so negligently. But what this really is, negligent entrustment, these cases are normally brought when you have a tortfeasor, a bad guy like the driver of the boat, who simply doesn't have money to satisfy a judgment, and his son, his estate, whatever it may be, probably didn't. So you look around for someone like Murdaugh and his estate and his insurance policies that can at least begin to cover this loss. Although the reality is no amount of insurance policy is going to cover the loss that these parents suffered of their child being gone.
Mm-hmm. Still so much ahead for Alex Murdaugh in these cases. All right, Danny Cevallos, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We are tracking showers and storms from coast to coast this morning. Let's get a check at your morning news now. Weather meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Valerie. Great to see you. Yeah, we're going to be tracking those showers for days to come. We've been tracking them since Monday. So another soggy day for many from coast to coast. We're looking at the Intermountain West, portions of the central and southern Rockies into the southeast being soaked once again. You can see on radar, you see the green, that's where the rain is falling, and the yellows, the reds, the oranges, that's where the heaviest rain is falling. So we will see downpours throughout the day, too, especially in parts of the central and southern plains. Could see some severe storms, too. And then in the southeast, we're going to see locally heavy downpours that could lead to local flash flooding. So as we go throughout time here, we are looking at a developing weekend low. In addition to a cold front that's sort of draped across the southeast, that's going to bring the chance for more showers. It's going to bring the chance for really high rainfall rates. So think those summer-like downpours. That's going to lead to localized flooding. That's today. Then tomorrow we'll watch that low move a little bit to the north. It's going to spin off the coast there, and notice all those bright colors showing up in the Carolinas. So this is Friday, really the unofficial start to summer, where we're looking at that low meandering towards the South Carolina coast. We're going to see soaking rain from Hatteras to Jacksonville, and unfortunately it stays in place on Saturday. So not a great beach day for many along the Carolina coast on Saturday. It's going to be rainy, cool, breezy, dreary. And in addition to that, this low is going to really stir up the seas. So we're looking at rip current risk and rough surf at the beaches. So be careful if you're out vacationing or you're living in the Carolinas. We're looking at some rough surf as we go throughout the weekend. This is through Saturday in terms of the rainfall amounts. We're looking at a lot of rain along the Carolinas. So Cape Hatteras to Wilmington down in Charleston, even Jacksonville, locally 5 inches. Florida, you saw a lot of rain over the past few days. We're going to see more, so the grounds are saturated. We could see some low-lying areas seeing some flooding. Otherwise, we're looking at strong storms in the southern plains. We're looking at rain in the central plains. We're looking at that rain still in portions of the Intermountain West. The Northeast is going to be dry. It's going to be a nice day, but we're going to have a cool breeze in place. It's going to be lower than normal in terms of the temperatures, and we're going to feel that cooler air. We're going to rebound this weekend, though. Rainfall amounts in the central and southern plains into Texas, Oklahoma, portions of Nebraska, locally 2 to 4 inches. In addition to that rainfall, we're looking at the chance once again for severe weather. We again saw that Monday, Tuesday. Once again, you need to plan for the chance for severe storms as we go throughout this afternoon and evening. It's once that daytime heating gets going, kind of stirs up those storms. Winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some hail, some really large hail. Those are the two takeaways in those parts of the country. And we could see a tornado or two possible, but that is on the lower end of the risk scale in terms of winds and also some hail. So as we go throughout time here, you saw today, tomorrow, we're looking at those scattered storms. So much green on the map, unfortunately. For Friday, we're looking at that rainfall in the Intermountain West into the plains. A nice day once again into the Northeast. Temperatures in the 70s in the Northeast and into the Mid-Atlantic. Coastal showers, as I showed you, in parts of the Carolinas into Florida. That remains in place on Saturday, so a bad beach day there. Humid and dry along the Gulf Coast states, parts of the southern plains, but again, Texas, Oklahoma, the western parts, you're looking at some rain falling, showers and storms in the Intermountain West, and it kind of stays stuck. We're looking at that on Sunday once again, a shower chance in the northern plains, the Intermountain West, cloudy and damp on Sunday. Dry and hot in the southwest. We're looking dry along the Gulf Coast too, and warm too, with temperatures into the 80s and 90s. Memorial Day, I know we're all looking for good weather on that day, but those showers will linger into the Carolinas. And Valerie, we're looking at those showers creeping into the southern parts of the Mid-Atlantic too, but it looks like north of that into the Northeast, we should keep it dry and warm for Memorial Day. Back to you.
All right, Michelle Grossman, thank you so much. This morning, the world is remembering music icon Tina Turner.
The news of her death was confirmed in a statement posted on her official Facebook page yesterday. It said, "Today we say goodbye to a dear friend who leaves us all her greatest work, her music." Turner died in her home in Switzerland on Wednesday after a long illness. She had been battling serious health issues for quite some time after retiring from performing in 2009. Turner was 83. Joining us now to discuss Tina Turner's legacy is executive editor of People magazine, Jeremy Helliger. Jeremy, good to have you with us. You know, I mean, tributes have been pouring in from all over the world. Even the White House weighed in. Let's take a listen to that real quick.
It is a massive loss to the communities that loved her, and certainly to the music industry. And her music will continue to live on. Very sad news.
A lot of celebrities are paying tribute on social media as well. The biggest names in the business, really. What's some of the reaction we're hearing?
Yeah, Diana Ross has paid tribute. Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart. Priscilla Presley actually did, and she said that Tina Turner was Elvis's favorite singer. So that's really, really a high compliment, the highest.
Yeah, no kidding. And then, I mean, we're hearing from Oprah, we're hearing from Beyonce, who famously danced, you know, with Tina Turner at the Grammys in 2008. Cher, I mean, there's just so many legends who knew Tina Turner and were really touched by her life.
Yeah, you also had Lizzo. And the interesting thing is that she really touched people who were older and people who were younger. If you were younger, maybe you remember her from What's Love Got to Do With It, Private Dancer, The Best. And older fans remember Proud Mary. And Creedence Clearwater Revival took that song to #2 in 1969. 2 years later, Tina Turner covered it and took ownership of it. You don't think of Proud Mary without thinking of Tina doing the little dance.
No kidding.
She was so iconic, and she had such an influence on so many people. Talk about the legacy that she leaves behind.
Well, I think the first legacy, of course, is the music. She's the second woman after Stevie Nicks to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice. And she has a legacy of survival. She survived an abusive marriage to Ike. She survived sexism. She survived racism. She survived ageism to launch what is probably still one of the most spectacular comebacks in the history of rock and roll.
I mean, it's often thought her life could be seen in two parts. There was the first part with Ike Turner and the abusive relationship, which she escaped. And then there was this second part where she became the queen of rock and roll, where she sort of proved, I don't need a man. And even though she was in her 40s and 50s when she achieved that superstardom, which in the music world is incredibly old, she really did overcome so much. She was an inspiration, wasn't she?
And that's the incredible thing about Tina. I mean, here's a woman who was sort of in the forefront with Ike, but in the background at the same time. And against all odds, she was able to come back in her mid-40s and become one of the biggest stars of the 80s and influence generations. It's just an incredible career.
In one of her final interviews, she was asked how she would like to be remembered. She said, quote, as the queen of rock and roll. Safe to say that she still holds that title?
I think she does. And it's funny because she talked about how she was sort of put in the R&B box being a black woman, but her first love was rock and roll. And if you look at the people, Pete Townsend, Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart, who are commenting, you realize, wow, she really accomplished what she set out to do.
And proof of that, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not once, but twice. First with Ike, and then just 2 years ago as a solo act. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, she's just such an incredible talent. And I think that, you know, she's been retired for a while, but people, I think, thought that she was immortal, that she would live forever. So this is a real shock to everyone.
All right. Jeremy Helliger, thanks so much for joining us this morning and helping us reflect. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.